it really is a community that is invested in the growth and development of its students. The teachers are very invested. So I appreciate most that sense of like just that centering of the child, and they know who they are, they know what their strengths are.
I'm Glenn Herbert, and I'm an editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private schools to gain insights into their programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administrators. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
I've sent 2 kids to Sunnybrook, both have graduated, and our process was really different for each. We really did a much broader search for the first child, trying to understand where he would go after he left daycare. So we looked at a bunch of schools. Now, this is going back quite a long time, 2004. We looked at a bunch of schools and really narrowed it down to Sunnybrook because of what it offered us. For our second child, we had sent one child through successfully, seen sort of the product of the school, what it can deliver from an experience perspective, from an academic development perspective. And so it was almost like a no-brainer when it came to our second child. It was, they're very different, but it was the right school for her for different reasons as well. So it was a much easier process the second time. That's such a great question. I think that they each had very different experiences. They're different kids. They've had different home lives as well. I've got one child who splits his time between our house, which is where I and his dad and his sister live, and then his mom's house. So that's one sort of major difference between the kids. And then our daughter is here with us all the time. So what I'd say is that for each of them, what was most important and what they got most out of Sunnybrook was this sense of belonging. For our son, it was really important that he had stability in his life, a place that was the same, that he went to every single day, that the teachers knew him, and you could see him really settle into that over time, that sense of sort of concreteness underneath him was so important to his growth and his development as an individual, as a human. And you could really see that as an arc through his development. For our daughter, she came to Sunnybrook after 5 years or 4 years at daycare, and another very small environment, and is a really unique child. Wasn't your typical girl who was really into princesses and big fluffy dresses. That never has been, never will be her thing. And so she had a little bit of a different experience where she came into this environment where she had to find kind of her people that she could go create those relationships with. But she was able to do that, and the school really helped her in finding those relationships and helping her establish herself. And that you could tell over time, same kind of outcome as our son, which was this incredibly confident person who advocates for themselves, who's very independent. And so like their experiences were similar and different. The outcome were these 2 children who could advocate for themselves, are totally independent, very good problem solvers. What I loved about Sunnybrook for them was that it gave them the power to go access help, access resources, teachers. That was something that we didn't see happening at another school. And one of the reasons why we sent them there was so that they could develop that skill, which is such an important life skill. Oh, great question. Well, I'm sure if you asked them, they would rank in some kind of order: gym, lunch, and recess. But I think upon reflection, they would tell you that the ability to connect with their friends in a really dynamic environment, a dynamic learning environment, lots of group work, lots of fun in learning was probably the takeaway. And then the focus, I think that the common thread that runs through their what they would call their three favorite things: recess, lunch, and gym, is really just this notion that it's a child-centric school, and they're allowed to be themselves, and they're allowed to have fun, and they're allowed to engage with each other, and they're encouraged to engage with each other. So I think that's what they tell you was the top three things for them. Definitely that sense of confidence and that sense of belonging. It really is a community that is invested in the growth and development of its students. The teachers are very invested, so I appreciate most that sense of um, uh, like just that centering of the child, and they know who they are, they know what their strengths are. That confidence and that independence is something that I think if you invest in early, just reaps rewards over time. And then I'd say, because it is a school, the the enriched academic program was certainly something we were really happy about. Each child really got to get their hands dirty, so to speak, in their learning and their education. It's a very hands-on. The primary years program for the IB program is very hands-on. It's all inquiry based. They develop these incredible presentation skills. This ability to just sort of talk about their work with their peers, with evaluators, is just something that they're used to, and they don't think anything of it. They don't get super stressed. They will stress over grades, but they don't get super stressed over something that is, for even a lot of adults, really intimidating. So I'd say the academic grounding that they got was really phenomenal. Yeah, that's a tough one. I um, I think we always found ourselves to be very active and engaged parents. So when there was something that we needed help with, or that we felt needed to be addressed, we always went straight to the principal, to the vice principal, to the teachers, to get their help in addressing things. I'd say, and we always successfully sort of got ourselves a resolution as the team that surrounded our children. I would say that this one of the things that we think is most special about Sunnybrook is probably also the one area that can sometimes be constraining. And I think it's important for parents to know that when you choose a small school, there are trade-offs that you make, right? In facilities, in environment, in gene pool, in population. So all of these things that you get with a small school, this child-centered learning, this sort of this individualistic focus on the child, and like this team mentality that everybody's there to support and help develop your child. Those are the things you go all in on, and you maybe deprioritize things like a big giant campus, like a big field. And those are the things that are out of Sunnybrook's control. And there's nothing, they can't like up and move the school anywhere. But that's the one area that by the time we got to grade 6, the end of grade 6, I think everybody knew it was time to move on to a larger environment. I think if you'd asked both of our kids in like grade 2, they would have said, we're going to stay here forever. This is our home. We never want to leave. But by grade 6, it was an acknowledgement that they'd they'd done what they needed to do. They grew the way they were supposed to grow. They developed the way they were supposed to develop, and it was time to move on. So I'd say that's probably the big trade-off with a school like Sunnybrook, and something that everybody should be sort of fully aware of. I'll tell you a story. um, when we started our first, when our son started there, I met one of the parents um, who had 4 kids at the school, and her youngest daughter was in my stepson's class. And she said to me after a morning coffee, she said, just come by the school anytime. I'm always here in the library or volunteering to do something. And I remember thinking, what do you mean all the time? But it was true. There are always parents available and willing to help, and in a really constructive way, not in a way that is like, we need to take over, we don't like the how things are going, but in a really sort of like school-led manner. The Parents Association is just a really constructive force within the school, providing some additional support to Sunnybrook. And I think that was one of the really nice surprises that we got, was this really engaged parent community. People we're still friends with today. Our son graduated 8 years ago. So people we still know, and still talk to, and still value those relationships. From a values perspective, Sunnybrook is really true to who they say they are. I'd say it's a community of learners who care about each other, about their environment, about the world, about their immediate community and the global community. Their teachers, from everything I've seen, are fully invested in the growth and the development of their children. They're true professionals. Sunnybrook really invests in the professional development of their educators. They spend a lot of time in the IB sort of ecosystem, creating new skills, getting new perspectives. So you always feel like you're on the cutting edge of education philosophy and deployment of those technologies and those methodologies. So that investment of the teachers is certainly a value that they speak of and that you can see exhibited. And then they talk about that it's an academically enriched program, and it is. Both our son and our daughter, when they went to their next schools, were already well ahead in math. I'll say a big change that Sunnybrook has made over the years was in their French program. When our son went to his next school, he struggled a little bit with that transition to French. We had to get a tutor. He really felt like he wasn't ready. When we brought that back to Sunnybrook and said, like, hey, just so you know, this is our experience. They said, we know we invest in our French program this way because that's what we believe in. They wanted to create people who could converse, who enjoyed the language, who enjoyed the culture, versus people who could just be like, sort of recite a verb and be grammatically correct in French. But they did incorporate that feedback into their program, so that by the time our daughter graduated 8 years later, and went to her next school, she felt very comfortable going into the French program at her new school, and feeling quite confident in her ability to compete academically. So I'd say that that focus on preparing our kids for their academic challenges ahead of them, but really I'd say the biggest value that comes out of that their focus on academic enrichment is this notion that they teach the kids to think. And then I'd say they teach them to think differently. So they really teach them to think from all sides of a story, so they can really incorporate multiple different viewpoints. And I think that you'll hear Sunnybrook talk about that, and you can see it in the way the kids process information and solve problems. It's a diverse community at Sunnybrook. You have all sorts of different families that choose to send their kids to that school. I'd say a common value is that they really believe in the mission of Sunnybrook. They believe that a small environment that is inquiry-based, steeped and follows the IB curriculum, the primary years program, is the right place for children to really develop a love of learning and an appreciation for the world around them and the people around them. So I think that's where you see the commonalities, is really this focus on creating really great humans. They loved their camp trips. Both of them, they would speak of that as a highlight. I know our daughter is really proud of her work with the PYP exhibition. So this is that sort of like culminating project that the kids do in grade 6 around like a big research topic. She and her group worked really hard on that. Their teacher was a phenomenal guide and mentor, and they produced some really outstanding research and positions from that work. And she was really, really proud of that. I think she was also really proud of her athletic achievements. So was our son. They both like thrived academically, thrived athletically at Sunnybrook, and so they're really proud of. Our daughter's very proud of how she did in cross country. They both played on the basketball team, both played on the soccer team, and I think those inter-school competitions really had fun. They were able to compete at other schools, and I know they're super proud of that. And then I think they both came away with some best friends, and I think those are relationships that are really important to them. I'll say one of the things that we really appreciated about Sunnybrook was the accessibility to the administration and to the teachers. I always felt like they were there to listen to us, to hear us. They know our kids, like they knew our children, their strengths, their challenges, their sort of unique, quirky personality traits. They knew their senses of humor. And so they could really sit and listen with full understanding of, and then help us if we had an issue. They could really help us sort of carve a solution that made the most sense for our family and for our kids. So I'd say I have nothing but good things to say about the teachers. I think like every teacher we got, it felt like, oh, we couldn't ever do better than that teacher, and like, that's it, that's the high point. And then the next year we'd get another teacher and a new teacher, different teacher for the grade. And we'd be like, oh, this is amazing. Like we're learning a different way, different personalities. I think that's important too. Not the teachers are a diverse set of people as well. And really seem to like each other. They really are a team. They work well together. But I'd say from an accessibility perspective, Sunnybrook has always been there for us, and really a partner with us in our child's development. Three reasons why. The social aspect that you get out of the social development that you get out of a small school is a primary reason to send a child to Sunnybrook. So this, all of the benefits that you get from a small school environment in those early developmental years of their academic and just academic lives and lives in general, is a big reason why I would choose to send another child to Sunnybrook if we had one. I think that that sense of security and that sense of belonging that I talked about at the beginning is something that has really underpinned the growth and development and confidence in our children. We can see that. So that would be number one. Number two, I would say the IB program and the primary years program specifically provides such a compelling value proposition for how children can learn. This really like hands-on, please question things, like please look at this from a different angle, let's discuss, let's sort of sort through the problem and find the answer. That was really compelling to us and remains very compelling to us, and in fact was very pivotal in how we chose the next school, because we wanted to ensure that that type of learning, which really fosters a love of learning, this like curiosity and engagement, that was going to persist through both of their next schools. So I'd say that's second. And then I guess the third reason is it's just a really great environment to send. Like, you feel good when you drop your child off at school. You know they're going to have a great day. You know they're going to have some energy expended in a really productive and constructive way. They're going to learn something amazing. They're going to do something with their hands. They're going to have a terrific lunch. As working parents, there's a phenomenal aftercare, before and after school care program that we always felt really good about leaving our kids with until we could get there to pick them up at the end of the day. So I'd say that just like the vibe is just so comfortable. Oh, that's such a great question. I think it would depend. Maybe I'll look at this from two angles. For starting the school, I would say develop the relationships with your fellow parents and the teachers. That those are relationships really worth developing and investing in, because you'll be with them for a while. I'd say don't sweat the small stuff. Especially as the parent of a child who just moved from grade 6 into their next school in grade 7. I would say they all, especially at Sunnybrook, they do such a phenomenal job preparing the kids to make that transition to the next school in grade 7. We all stress over that transition, and Sunnybrook has you covered. That's what I'd say. They are such a good guide for you in that. So don't stress about that. And then I'd say, like, get involved. The more you're involved in the school without being overly involved in your child's life and allowing them to have their space to develop and create a space for themselves, I think the more you're going to see what a special place Sunnybrook really is.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.